Hi everyone, this is going to be a preface on what is going on of this video. Initially, I planned to release it in the beginning of April, but things happened which I'll talk about during the outro. This video has been in production for 6 months since I remembered it when writing my Sorta Kake Girl video. As a reminder, that talked about writers switching halfway through the series. This video does something similar but focuses on detailing the production history from the initial pitch to the licensing overseas. Thankfully, most of the information came from one source, but it was in French. I don't know any of it, but surprisingly when I translated it to English, the sentences actually made sense. This is because English and French have nearly identical grammar and sentence structures, so there may be some minor errors, but I'll present it how it appears. If there is information misrepresented or incorrectly featured, please inform me and I will pin any adjustments in a comment below. Additionally, some information is from secondhand sources and some contradicts others' accounts. While I may paint a picture of the possible events, I will present each piece as they appear. Also, I have to use both the broadcast and home release footage to demonstrate the changes, which means using fan subs. Just to inform you, I have bought the official release by Made in Japan, so hopefully that circumvents any issues. Now, what is a series with a troubled production history? It is one featuring giant robots jumping around the city, all while playing a beloved sport. Of course, I'm referring to Basquash. Let's go above the rim. Here we go, you got the rim. Let's go above the rim. Within the pool of the underground. Let's go above the rim. Here we go, you got the rim. Let's go above the rim. Within the pool of the underground. Let's go above the rim. When first announced, Basquash was an enigma with a name and no concept. People knew Shoji Memoriam across fame was working on this new project but didn't know what to expect. During the months leading up to its premiere, small commercials would air on Japanese television previewing the Bigfoot mecha lurking about the city. You could tell they were large with the ground rumbling before they appeared as a blur. People now knew it is related to mechs in some way, especially with Kawamori working on it. Then, a longer promo video revealed the premise: giant robots doing street basketball. Finally, people can understand what Kawamori was working on, but it was conceptualized by series co-creator Toma Romain. He is the creator of Code Lyoko and Oban Star Racers, so he has dealt with anime-inspired productions already before moving to Japan to further develop his animation skills. Originally, Romain drew up the concept while working on Engage Planet Kistom, where a co-worker suggested he show it to Kawamori. At the time, he didn't know who Kawamori was, but this reduced the stress of presenting it to him by thinking it wouldn't be a big deal. After Kawamori saw the sketch, he proposed a cooperation to bring the project to life, leading to the birth of Basquash. It wouldn't be just them heading the project, as Tatsuo was tasked with writing the series and Shin Itagaki to direct. Meanwhile, Kawamori served as project director to guide the staff, and Romain as art director. In this role, Romain would be tasked with molding the world and designing characters to match the story during the planning stages. As you will see later, he moved on to doing background art and CG modeling for the world of Basquash. Now, what was the concept Romain pitched to Kawamori? It was this. As you can see, it is giant robots using a car as the main body playing basketball. These would later be called Bigfoot due to their large mechanical spring holders and serve as the main attraction to the series. This is an important thing to note as Romain's vision deters from the final product. He helped create most of the main cast, but character designer Takahiro Yoshimatsu would tweak the designs when nearing the final stages to be more appealing to an otaku audience. Apparently, the target demographic was young children at first. Future discussions would change it towards an older otaku demographic in result of the broadcasters supplying them a nighttime slots. Thus, Romain mentioned aging up the characters, adding complex layers to the story, and inserting erotic touches. We can see the process of these changes in initial illustrations from around 2007 that matched the pitch. The designs appear to be inspired by native or Mesoamerican cultures with the worshipping of the sun, the mask, and the markings. As you can see, the characters are vastly different from the final product. I can't make direct correlations to other characters, but it appears the boy wearing the jersey is Dan JD's original concept, and maybe the masked figure would be the precursor to his Dunk Mask identity. The vehicle may have been an early design of the team's caravan as they traverse the world, but I am unsure. The idea of a larger world was a focal point of Romain's as he wanted to add more diversity in the series, which may explain why we see many cultures represented in the initial sketches. This is because in the next designs we see the first creations of the Bigfoots in 3D alongside some mythical creatures. For the Bigfoots, they each have kanji behind them, where the top one is kaze for wind, the bottom left is mu for nothingness, and the final one I can't really tell. I think it might be ki for riding a horse, but that doesn't make sense given its design. Then on the next page we return to the elephant playing basketball alongside some other creatures. The elephant appears to be inspired by India with the Taj Mahal in the background, and I think the middle one is supposed to be the Quetzalcoatl from South America. This suggests the series is going to be a globe-trotting adventure with encounters of different cultures. Given only the images, it is unknown as to why the creatures are playing basketball, but maybe it is related to the lore of the game. Finally, while I can't read what the top two are, the bottom left is called Neon Robot with its lavish design, so maybe an opponent in Las Vegas or a similar city. Then the other one is for the team's rival, whoever they would face in the beginning stages of development. One final thing to point out is the series' initial logo, which appeared with ink splashes behind it. Speaking of which, more towards the end of 2007, the logo and character designs would begin to finalize themselves to those that we know today. The first few we have here is dated December 2007 to January 2008. First are the main characters. From left to right, you have Mira Blanca, who I believe is Sayla's original design. Then Billy Jordan, who obviously is Dan JD's design, with inspiration from Basketball Hall of Famer Michael Jordan. On a side note, apparently the JD stands for Jordan, so this carried over. Next up is Iceman Hottie's concept featuring his prosthetic arm and leg with a different skin color. Strangely, his name was, Nike Air. Wow, Nike, you really wanted your brand everywhere, didn't ya? If you don't know, Nike was a sponsor for this series. All of the shoes for the characters in Bigfoot would have the famous swoosh on them. The rightmost design is labeled Alan Flora, which I believe is supposed to separate their identities instead of being a full name. It is when Flora is presenting as Alan, because the next page features Princess Flora in her royal dress. Following her is Rill, the club owner. There is a character of the same name in the series that is the bar owner, so maybe she had a larger role in the series. Next is presumably Falcon's concept, the team's rival, Puma. As you can probably assume, he was named after a rival shoe brand to Nike, making the whole Nike Air name even more hysterical. Finally, we have the mayor, but he doesn't look anything like the one in the series. He looks more like young Harris, the series antagonist and Eclipse's manager. Up next are early designs for Coco, Gons, and Alan in their secret identity costume. Coco probably looks the most different, but remains wheelchair bound because of the Bigfoot accident. Gon seems similar in age to his friends now with a friendlier appearance. Alon looks more like a security guard here, so maybe he snuck out using this. Next are designs for whom I presume are Belle, Dunk Mask, and a security officer. Belle's name was Ein, probably from Einstein as the genius of the group. Then Dunk Mask has this more demonic mask than that of a hero. Plus it doesn't appear to be formed from Spunky, but you'll soon see he was created later as a sidekick. And then the security officer, who is security officer. Not much to say. Now on this slide we have Haruka as the team's coach, looking vastly different from her final design. Then the rival team coach, James, who has a falcon. I presume the coach and rival were combined together at some point. Oh, and he appears to be James Lone as a coach rather than a manager. Plus we have Miyuki and her grandfather's early designs, but their names are just mechanic and trailer owner, so it appears the roles may be more as assist characters with no names. Additionally, we can see that the logo changed during this time to the final one of the series. Finally, we have the idols Eclipse themselves, dated June 16, 2008. Their designs are making progress to their finalized ones, but not quite there. It seems the color coordination is finalized with pink, yellow, and purple, but their characters overall are still in the works, aligning with information we'll find out later. As production neared its end, we got designs finalized more towards what we know of today. We see Don looking practically the same, the only real difference is Spunky here looking more like his frog counterpart. Then Icemon finally got his name changed, looking sleeker with a ponytail and his goldfish tattoo. And Sailor Miranda is beginning to come into focus, including her pet snake Crawley, which looks a bit derpy here compared to the elegance of the final design. Oh, and here's Belle, different from the earlier design. That's it for the planning stage and concept art. Now we can go into production. Romain shares the work environment for the production on his end as a background designer. He mentions that each team for the series, beginning with episode 1, is insanely small. Only 3 people in the 3D department, meaning they have to do the models, composition, and animation. Then 2 people each on decor color, and composition. This was for the French animators as they were in their own separate room. Romain also reports the status of episode production. As of December 2008, Itagaki completed 7 of the first 9 episodes storyboards by himself, while Tatsuo wrote the first 7 episodes by mid-January 2009. Something else of note is that this is the first time Tatsuo would be the writer without directing as well, which may play a factor later on. Additionally, we have a sort of schedule for episode production. According to Romain, their time is severely reduced as production goes on, with episode 1 having 4 months to complete, 2 months for the second episode, 1.5 months for the third, a month for the fourth, and they needed to complete an episode every 10 days from the 5th episode onward. Sadly, this is the normal schedule for most anime productions, as they have a limited schedule to work with when producing each episode. As the days continue, the time gets shorter and shorter of how quickly they need to complete an episode, sometimes finishing an episode mere hours before broadcast. We do know that the first episode was officially completed in mid-February, as they had a screening event they needed to premiere it at, fast approaching on February 25th, 2009. This event would preview the series to new fans and prospecting business partners to test engagement. According to Romain, the event was a success, as the number of attendees amounted to over 2,000, exceeding their expectations of 1,500. The reaction from the crowd was cold at first until characters voiced by popular seiyuu appeared, most notably Hana Kanazawa as Coco JD, Don's sister. However, something happened during the Q&A where Kawamori urged Itagaki to come on stage. Apparently, Itagaki is a man of few words and doesn't enjoy being in the limelight. He can talk for hours about different ideas and meetings with co-workers, but when given the spotlight, he doesn't enjoy the attention. Itagaki was upset with Kawamori's actions, which is understandable, and remained silent for the rest of the screening. This may or may not come back into play later on. The screening had another objective to film a documentary there. A week before the first episode aired, the documentary premiered on the Tokyo Broadcasting System and later on YouTube to provide a behind-the-scenes look at production. We got to see the environment the animators worked in and meet some of the key people on the team. Strangely, this is where the first piece of conflicting information comes up. The ending theme, Free, by Yu Yamato, is supposed to be the main theme of the series according to this documentary. It isn't quite clear if they meant an opening or an insert theme, but Itagaki apparently did not like that the song didn't fit his vision and wasn't punchy enough, so he went with the idol group Eclipse in the show for the opening theme. It should be noted that Eclipse will be an issue in the future according to former staff, but I want you to hold on to this nugget of information until we come back. Supposedly, Yu Yamato is told this in passing in a hallway between shoots, because the interview portion in the documentary still has her saying it as the main theme. Romain felt sorry about this incident, but thought maybe it was the least of Yamato's worries. Now, with Free relegated to the ending theme, this may have thrown a wrench in the production's wheels, as the opening and ending were still in production 2 weeks before the premiere. The storyboards were completed by then, but it is weird that the opening and ending animation aren't done before the episodes they are supposed to debut in. This has happened before if another opening and ending are supposed to be added, such as with 2 core series like A Certain Magical Index or My Hero Academia. If the theme's animation isn't done, because they are working on a 10-day schedule at this point, then they can delay airing it but resolve it in the home release. With the deadlines fast approaching and a broadcast of the first episode coming soon, will the production work out? Well, not so much.
Get it.
Quietly and discreetly, Shin Itagaki posted on his personal blog on March 26, 2009 that he received terrible news on something he put a lot of work into. This would come a few days after the update on the opening and ending status, and shortly after Romain provided an update. Studio Satelight would produce 10 of the 26 episodes in-house, which is normal, while most of them would be outsourced to South Korea. He talks about how some directors can cause conflicts in producing an anime as they may not have the vision for the anime in mind, and mentions that one was entirely bad to work with. Now, given the earlier updates, it could be hinting at Itagaki being this director he was referring to. However, since it isn't a paragraph on outsourcing automation to other studios, it could be an episode director, yet we don't know much of what went on. Then, the big day finally arrives, April 2nd, 2009, the premiere of Basquash. While Romain heavily informed fans not to watch fan subs, he enjoyed hearing their feedback. first reception was positive with an original concept and diverse universe. However, things fell off in the first episode with long moments of stationary shots and panning. Some were dynamic, such as the pawning scene where we have Karamori's face on the currency, but others were dull, such as with the broadcast of the BFB game and Miyuki's reunion with Dan. We did get to see the ending animated in full though, so that can be checked off as completed. And then episode 2 aired and we start to see some problems rile up. As mentioned previously, the opening and ending were delayed for the next few episodes. The opening used scenes from the first few episodes instead of unique shots. Production was beginning to look rough, and this would be confirmed in an update before episode 3's premiere. Romain states that they are currently working on episode 7, 8, and 9 for background set decor, only just receiving assets for episode 10 from Itagaki. They tried to outsource storyboarding for episodes 11, 12, and 13 to other borders, but failed. Itagaki did the storyboards for 11 and 13, but episode 12 was split between Suezen for the first half and outsourced to Hiroyuki Hashimoto in the second. Hashimoto is listed for directing episode 4, so he has worked on Basquash at least once. The fact I'm mentioning it here should be of concern. Meanwhile, the scripts for episodes 18 to 20 were currently being written, but then things began to unravel themselves. Episode 4 aired. It was a mess. Much of the background shots were empty, only showing small parts of the city from a distance and scarce of scenery. The animation would skip between frames without any fluidity and do some atrocious zooming. Well, except for some specific scenes we'll touch on later. It couldn't be called a style since it seemed like something a film student would submit. After it aired, Romain commented on the events that transpired. The director for the episode apparently came from one of the aforementioned outsourced studios and did such a terrible job with the frame check that Satelight needed to redo them again as soon as possible. While Hashimoto was the episode director, he is partially to blame because Itagaki is liable as well. When we return to episode 4 next, you'll understand why. Romain mentions not being pleased with episode 5 either, which would be expanded upon in a future post where he cites Itagaki accepting the story on the first draft, all while making fixes to the storyboards themselves instead of revising them into new drafts. This made them confusing to read and understand when sent to contractors, who did their best to process the information. He says it usually takes 4 or 5 revisions for the scenario in meetings, so it is mind-boggling as to why Itagaki accepted the first draft. But this would be a trend to come for future episodes and throw the production with weekly deadlines into a frenzy. Yet there would be another wrench thrown into production that no one saw coming. I'm kidding. They saw it from miles away. Shortly after the airing of the 9th episode, it was announced that Shin Itagaki was fired as director of Basquash. He would be replaced by Satou Eiichi, coincidentally the director of Kiss Them Engage Planet, where Romain first conceptualized Basquash. Additionally, the project team was reorganized where several were fired, such as Chief Animator Hirata Tatsuo. Some voluntarily left, possibly due to the reorganization or disagreement with Itagaki's firing. Most notably, episode director Hashimoto Hiroyuki, the one suspected of doing a terrible job already on episode 4 and presumably 12B, but he already did work up to episode 17, so we still have more to go. Sadly, this isn't the first instance of people leaving the team. During pre-production, Romain mentioned that they attempted to bring more French animators onto the project, both for 2D and 3D animation. It was difficult to do for 3D animation because of some language barriers, but they eventually decided to help with 2D animation at an extremely low pay. Sometime between pre-production and nearing broadcast, several French animators left the project. No reason was provided, but Romain did say there were more French animators than those listed in the credits. So, why was Itagaki fired? Possibly due to tensions between him and other staff members, maybe because he accepted first drafts. There was even last-minute additions to episodes that he did. Plus, there is his questionable direction of episodes. Well, it would be the first and last one, as sponsors did not like the direction of the series because of certain shots he would use where they offered criticism to fix them. Instead of listening to them, he ignored them and pushed forward his vision for the series. This is the main reason, but Romain states that other issues apply to this as well. They smoothly transitioned to Satou Eiichi because he started doing direction and storyboards for them already in earlier episodes, serving as Satellight's go-to man in case of these situations. Obviously, they had the foresight to hire him since they saw the production state in advance. Itagaki did work up to episode 16, so people want to see a noticeable change until at least episode 17, especially if it is a jarring difference. Although people said episodes 10 through 12 were noticeable in their drop in quality, Romain said that episodes 10 and 11 were 2 of the outsourced episodes, so it isn't themselves to blame entirely. Then episode 12 was apparently a joke to provoke fans. Earlier I mentioned episode 12 had 2 storyboards and split into 2 parts. These episodes focused on daily life stuff to expand upon the world, but appeared vastly different from other episodes. Apparently it was a joint decision by Itagaki and Kawamori to do the episode this way, as it was brought up in a meeting a year beforehand. I have no idea what the exact plan was, yet you can notice the differences. One thing to point out is that Suizen didn't just storyboard side A of episode 12, but scripted and directed all of it himself. Suizen is one of the pen names of Fumio Iida, a character designer and animator for Gainax. He did several character designs for Basquash as well, such as Falcon and the opponents the team faces in episode 12. He notably does this interesting gimmick where shots change based on the hair color of the triplets, which at least exemplifies as his own take on the series with some experimentation. However, the first half of the episode used shortened versions of the opening and ending, while the second half animated a new opening to the shortened version. The entire episode used nearly 5 minutes of opening and ending animations, out of the almost 24 minutes excluding the recap and preview, where even the second half had its own preview. There is a bit more to it. As I previously mentioned, Episode 12B was directed and storyboarded by Hashimoto. You really get to see his style flourish here because it is questionable. If you watch it for yourself, you'll notice so many shots just zooming in and out of weird places. There are many reasons for using zoom, but some reasons is to provide further information, to show the importance of something, or to show the relevance of the character to another object, either inanimate or living. Some moments are appropriate, such as showing Dan and Belle on the windmill when they're talking off camera, or to reveal Gramps when he feels forgotten by the cast to make him feel insignificant. Heck, the zoom out on this family is to show how powerless they are because Basquash games destroyed their home. Then you have these mind-boggling scenes that make zero sense. You're zooming out from Haruka talking to Mr. Nike, and yes, they did name a character Nike after all, but it is her sending a request to make new shoes for the Bigfoot. So it isn't her losing power because she is the one in control. The only information revealed is her lingerie, and the images in the background only reinforce her as a foot fetishist. It doesn't serve a purpose besides having movement on screen. The worst case is here with Eclipse confronting Slash and James on their motive. It is supposed to be an important scene because Eclipse gathered up the courage to approach the boss about being used. So why use a zoom out here? It is Citron talking, so it should be a zoom in to emphasize her words and them gaining power over Slash and James. If it was a zoom out, it should have been here when James laughed at them to make them feel insignificant. But even then, he tells them how important they are to his plan. So it should still be a zoom in because Eclipse is crucial to the plan succeeding. I'm not saying Hashimoto is a terrible director, I'm just saying his directing is contentious. Who knows? This was 10 years ago, and maybe he's improved since, but I can't really say for episode 17. While some shots seem like his, it is a joint episode with Toru Yamada. This happened around the time Hashimoto left, so maybe they handed it off, but I can't really say. Regardless, episode 12 would lead fans to suspect something is going astray in the production, but Romain would quell their fears with the midpoint in sight. Now that the series is reaching its halfway point with staff fired or leaving, how will the series move forward? Well, problems in production rear their ugly head yet again. Romain's team is about 5 episodes ahead of broadcast and going strongly with more people added. However, the opening and ending would remain incomplete with its premiere in episode 14. The fully finished opening wouldn't be released until episode 18, while the finished ending wouldn't be released until the disc release. We'll address that when we come to it. Anyway, the opening would be handled by HAL Filmmaker instead of in-house because of the workload between 2D and 3D animators. So, another delay for the definitive opening and ending. I mean, surely more delays when it come, right? The delay came with an announcement that episodes 1 through 3 would be reworked with Satou Eiichi's direction. But something strange happened where the synopsis for the first disc release changed, saying that Dan's sister Coco died in a Bigfoot accident. You know, one of the main characters who has been in many episodes already. Were they planning on retconning most of the story from episode 1? No, they weren't, thank God. You see, there was a press conference at a culture festival of Memoriam on stage premiering these rebranded episodes. These would later go up on YouTube for a short period. In the interview portion, Memoriam shared some details about Itagaki's firing. Overall, it was that the series didn't meet expectations for the sponsors, culminating in the fact that Itagaki doesn't enjoy basketball and apparently loves scantily clad women with large breasts. You'll see why this was problematic in the section showing the changes. With the delay, the team had to get hard to work on both the disc release and broadcast. Sadly, Romain would not provide as frequent updates as before due to the work. Apparently, the penultimate episode would be finished sometime after August 31st, and the final episode would be completed about 2 weeks before it actually aired, showing that they were cutting it down to the wire, likely attributed to the revised disc release, which we can now talk about. So, what were Kawamori and Eiichi's changes to Itagaki's intended vision? Earlier, I said episode 1 centered on the BFB game and had drawn out shots of various backgrounds. These were shortened, but the context is that these shots had a married couple arguing while doing housework before watching the game. That scene was cut entirely. I don't know why or the purpose it served besides foreshadowing Diana's duck mask. Yet the scene of Dan jumping off their balcony with them still arguing about their chores remains, so it seems weird in all honesty. But the long cuts being shortened was a nice change of pace. I would say, good on them. If only they didn't replace those scenes with recycled animation. And by recycled, I don't merely mean once or twice. I mean 5 different times in the span of 4 minutes. Now then, let's connect 2 comments together. Remember how the sponsors complained about certain details in the show? And then that comment about Itagaki loving big-breasted women? Well, sorry to break it to all the fans of those magnificent mommy milkers, but they reduced the bouncing of the breast significantly on the first Blu-ray disc. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say the first? I mean on all the discs of the entire series. And I'm not making this up. The reason why Itagaki was fired, why they changed the episodes, and the disc release was delayed was because of the physics of those humongous hooters. Okay, I'm over-exaggerating a wee bit here, as there are other issues resulting in his pink slip, such as conflicts with other staff members, last-minute additions to episodes, and accepting work on initial submission without further revision. I just find it funny to say he was fired for massive memories. Still, why was this problematic? One of the concerns from sponsors was the sexualization of the characters, especially the children. If I had to presume, maybe they still thought the show would be targeted towards a younger demographic from the initial pitch, even though they were aware of the time slot change. They likely didn't imagine Itagaki going to such lengths animating voluptuous volcanoes erupting and sweater puppies trying to get a breather. Most episodes had any sexual animation removed or decreased significantly that Eiichi didn't work on already. Don't believe me? Well, I'll show you myself the scenes side by side, and if you still don't believe me, go watch it for yourself. I'd be happy to know I wasn't the only one that had to suffer by watching both the TV broadcast and disc release versions on the lookout for bouncy bazookas coming straight towards me. Let's watch. Miyuki! So, you may have noticed that most of it was Haruka. Can we see what her original design was again? Yeah, something seems off. Anyway, instead of targeting a mature crowd, it became more child appropriate. Now, the other thing to consider is Romain kept passing it to French broadcasters to air on TV. This could have been a way to get it licensed overseas, but there is no comment on that at all, so take it with a grain of salt. In fact, the main issue for overseas licensing was the consideration of the Nike brand in the series, because they would have to remove it on the 2D illustrations and on the 3D CG models. Going back to the disc release, The only thing we have confirmed for any altered scenes is the sexual imagery that Itagaki worked on, likely in response to his own fetishes and it conflicting with sponsors. Yet this isn't the only thing they changed. While of course they fixed some drawings and animation in each episode as per usual, they also updated the second ending to include the CG models of Eclipse on the jumbo screen with some different illustrations intermixed. The original version reused animation from the first opening, so this was a necessary change, but the models look so weird. I know the 3D animation on TV was still developing at this point, but it is jarring to say the least. Anyway, this concludes Basquash's history. There is nothing else to talk about. Well, I guess they wanted to go back to their original pitch. According to a spot by Anime News Network from the 2010 Tokyo Anime Fair, Satelight planned for a sequel or relaunch of the franchise geared towards sports fans and kids. There isn't much info on it, but the latest I can find is a tweet from Romain where he says that Satelight isn't focused on the project with other things to do. We can at least have an idea of what they were planning because in Romain's Lost in Anime art book, he does preview illustrations of the new project. It seems to take place in the same universe but a different city, which makes sense because Basquash was created in response to Dan's meddling. After all, a legend needs to be created for a game to be born. Maybe they'll return to it in the future someday. Oh, but we finally got Basquash licensed in the West as well, 10 years later. Better late than never, right? You can go buy it from Made in Japan, or from a retailer who sells it cheaper. Let's see, is there anything else to talk about? Well, a year after Basquash ended, Tatsuo explained his ideas on the failure of the series in a book released at Comiket 78. Inside, he says the story drifted from his vision during the meetings and the supervisors, where one of them he cites as Itagaki, wanted to add things that conflicted with it and changed it in the storyboards at the last minute, matching other details that we have seen previously. For instance, he said there is no romance in the story, so they shoehorned the Eclipse in. However, this contradicts with Romain's statement that Pony Canyon, as a sponsor, ordered them to add in an idol group to increase music sales. They got popular actresses Haruka Tomatsu, Saori Hayami, and Megumi Nakajima, emerging from across fame as Ronka Lee, to sing and voice the characters. Since they invested so much into these actresses, I'm inclined to believe Romain. But it could also be both options where someone told Tatsuo to write the idols as love interests. Another possible conflicting statement is Satou says that they didn't change or address the rules of Basquash as an athletic game, but the promo clearly says no rules, which I think is symbolic of being free. They break free from the rules of the game and of society they live in, so I think that was the point, especially considering the main theme and final episode were both titled Free. Finally, he says that the moon was supposed to be a symbol in the series, something to strive towards as a goal, but not the actual endpoint of the series. It is similar to humanity's desire to pierce the heavens and rocket into space for the sake of the future. While some may actually do it, most of us won't, but the thought of surpassing those limits can inspire us. And that's the rest I can find on the production of Basquash, at least important to the story. Basquash's production was troubled since the start, or shortly thereafter. There were questionable decisions by Kawamori, Itagaki, Eiichi, and so many others, but the project emerged from Romain, who focused only on the art. One of the things that people love about Basquash is its luscious background art with so many hidden details done by French animators. Romain provided a goldmine of information on his time and experience being an animator on Basquash, alongside Japanese and French partners. They barely crossed the finish line to complete the series as it broadcasted while doing their best to meet deadlines. Anime production is a hectic business, and the animators get treated poorly with abysmal pay. If you take anything from this video, support the animators. Romain frequently posts updates on his Twitter regarding foreign animators in Japan and encouraging support for them. I will provide links to different animator groups down in the description below, such as the Animator Dormitory Project. These people will need everything to support their dreams and make animating an occupation possible for a livable wage. On that note, Romain did start his own animation team, Studio No Border, which is working on 2 projects, The Kumos and Monster Slaughter. While not much is known, his studio has been contracted with doing designs for various anime such as Carol on Tuesday and Skate the Infinity. He also has a YouTube channel where he takes his son's drawings and draws them in his own style. Plus, he offers advice and notes for people looking into doing animation or background art. All of these resources, as well as my references, will be either in the description below or in a Google Doc link, along with the music tracks as well. Yeah. Basquash is something I hold in a special place in my heart. I remember watching it as it aired 10 years ago, and I am glad I can support it officially now. I do wish this series ended on good terms, but hopefully the sequel series can resolve that, if it ever returns. Even though production was messy, many great things came out of it with a gorgeous background and a bopping soundtrack. Many artists, animators, and staff poured their hearts into this project, including Kawamori, Tatsuo, Itagaki, Eiichi, and Hashimoto. So thank you to them. Thank you to all the Japanese, Korean, and French staff, and thank you to Romain for creating a beautiful project and providing valuable information on anime production. I wish you the best. And that, my friends, is The Legend of Basquash. I hope you enjoyed it. Sadly, this video was supposed to be released in late March or early April. A lot of things happened to delay this video. I'm only going to mention the most recent event, which was on April 11th, 2021. My cat Toma passed away due to breathing problems. I tried taking him to multiple vets, multiple times, over multiple days, but they turned me away due to max capacity or low to no oxygen tanks available. I'm sad he had to suffer until his last dying breath, so I'm dedicating this video to him. It is weird that Basquash was created by Romain, which is pronounced similarly to Toma. Maybe it's a sign, but I don't know. Photos of him and his brother Tama should be playing about this end card section, so I hope you don't mind seeing them. If you want to see similar content on production history, you can watch my recent video on Baton Relay, where we see how someone stole an idea legally. Or if you prefer a more retrospective look on series, you can watch the Chemical Deluxe one I did earlier this year. Remember to support the people mentioned in this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, have a lovely day. Poof, poof.